The Story of the One-Eyed Man, a Tale of Truth and Faith. Chapter 1. The Strange Child. A long, long time ago, when the world was still young, a strange child was born. No one knew what his name would mean or what the future would bring. From the first day, there was something different about him. One of his eyes looked like a bright little star. The people who saw him whispered, "This child is special, but we do not know why." The boy grew up quickly. He was clever and brave, but sometimes he seemed angry and mean. Other children would play kindly together, but this boy felt alone in his heart. He didn't like it when people did not follow his orders. When someone asked him to share toys or sweets, he would frown and say, "No, they are mine." He didn't feel sorry for others. His heart was filled with selfishness and pride, even though he was just a child. As the boy grew older, he became more stubborn. He began to tell other children that he was better than them. If someone gave him the wrong answer to a question, he would scold them. He liked to tease others and twist their words to confuse them. He even told people that he could control the sun and moon with his magic. But this was all a lie, and he was the one who was being tricked by his own lies. The boy with the one bright eye was learning how to use tricks and deceit. One day the boy looked in a mirror and touched his face. He noticed his special eye shining at him. He whispered, "I am not like others. Soon I will have power and everyone will follow me." No one believed him yet. The villagers shook their heads and continued their lives. They never dreamed that one day this strange child would grow up to become the great deceiver who tests the faith of people everywhere. In the language of the scholars, he would be called Dajjal, which means the liar. Chapter 2. The Island Prison. When the boy became a young man, the people around him grew afraid. They saw how mean and proud he was, how he could not stop lying and tricking others. They decided he must be kept away from innocent people. So they took him far away to a mysterious island in the ocean. None of the villagers knew the way back home from that island. It was hidden behind high mountains and misty waves. On the island, the man was tied with thick iron chains inside an old stone building. The building had high walls and no windows, so no one could see inside. The floor was hard stone and covered with dust. He felt cold and lonely. The man with the single shining eye wondered if he would ever see the sky and sun again. He pulled at his chains and shouted, "I am strong. I will break these chains one day and rule the world." But his chains would not break. The walls of the prison were too thick and too high. Each time he tried to escape, something strange happened. If he climbed the walls or pushed at the heavy gate, big rocks would come rolling down from the mountains and push him back. The mountains seemed to guard the island. Night after night, he sat alone in the dark and screamed. He cried out, come back and set me free." But no one came to answer. Only the echo of his own voice answered him. He began to plan and practice in his mind. He spoke to himself, making up stories and lies for the day he would be free. He promised himself that one day he would not be locked away any longer. He would have his revenge on everyone who had put him there. Chapter 3. The Lost Sailors. Many years later, the man on the island still waited. One bright morning, a group of sailors was returning from a long journey across the sea. A big storm had tossed their small ship, and they were lost. Suddenly, they saw a green island ahead. It was not on any of their maps. The sailors guided the ship toward the shore. They were relieved to find solid ground. The sailors stepped onto the island and walked through the tall grass. They were not alone. A strange animal appeared before them. It looked like a great lion with golden fur, but it could talk. The sailors were afraid at first, but the animal did not attack. It turned and walked away as if leading them. Curious, the sailors followed it. The creature led them through the palm trees to an old stone building. The heavy wooden door was partly open. Inside, they saw a tall man sitting on the floor. His hands and feet were in heavy iron chains. The man looked at the sailors with a curious smile. The sailors sat down and waited quietly. After a moment, the chained man spoke in a deep voice. "Who are you, and where do you come from?" he asked. The sailors told him their names and that they were from a faraway land where people followed the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The man listened closely to every word. He asked them many questions. Is the great Persian kingdom still strong? Are the people of Mecca and Medina safe? When will the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, appear? Are there better days ahead or worse? The sailors answered him as best as they could. The chained man touched his shining eye and said softly, "You have told me enough. One day soon I will be free from these chains. When I come out, many people will be confused. I will say I am a new prophet and ask people to follow me. I will show wonders. If I command the sky to rain, it will rain. If I command the earth to grow, it will grow. Many will be fooled by these tricks, but I will only be testing them." The man finally stood up in his chains and said, "Now leave this place and sail back home. Go tell your Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, what you have seen." The sailors hurried back to their ship and sailed home with their hearts heavy. When they returned to their village, they told the Prophet Muhammad and all the people about the strange man on the island. The Prophet thanked Allah that they were safe and told everyone to be careful. He reminded the people that Allah would protect those who believed in him. And so the sailor's story was remembered by all. Chapter 4. The Great Escape. After many long years, the day came when the chains broke. Early one morning, the one-eyed man pushed against the iron walls of his prison, and to his delight, they crumbled. The mountains no longer held him. He had escaped from the island. Free at last, the Dajjal stepped out into the sunlight of a new day. He had waited so long for this moment. Now he would begin his plan to deceive the world. The Dajjal found a small boat and crossed the sea to the land of Syria. There he raised a tall flag that had two letters on it, the letter K and F, which he said stood for his name. He wore a heavy crown on his head and declared, "I am the Messiah of the world." Many people were frightened by this bold claim, and some did not believe him. But others were curious. The Dajjal gathered followers. He had a great army of people who believed his lies. He set up a large camp near an ancient city and shouted, "Obey me or be destroyed." The Dajjal performed strange wonders. He struck the dry ground with his staff, and suddenly water gushed out to form rivers. He waved his hand, and fields of grain sprang up from the sand. To those who followed him, it seemed like a miracle. But true believers knew it was all a test. They trusted that real life and rain came from Allah alone, not from a man. Everywhere in the Dajjal's camp, water flowed and fruit trees grew, but outside his camp, the land stayed dry and barren. True believers saw this and knew that Allah alone brings life to the earth. Many people struggled to choose the right path. Some fell into the trap of the Dajjal's promises and joined him. They called him Lord and ate food that seemed to appear from nowhere. But brave believers stood firm. They hid in the mountains and prayed. They remembered the true teachings of the prophets. They read verses from the Quran in secret and reminded each other that Allah was one and only He should be worshipped. The Dajjal could not enter the two holy cities of Mecca and Medina. Angels stood at the gates shining with swords. No matter how hard he tried, the gates remained closed. This made him furious, but he had to turn away. Day after day, the one-eyed man continued his cruelty. The sky over the land of Syria remained dark and stormy, except for one bright, sunny day. It felt as if the stars had vanished and no light existed except what Dajjal allowed. Throughout these hard days, the faithful people prayed and supported each other. At last, when hope seemed very small, they clung to patience and continued to pray, waiting for Allah to send help. Chapter 5. The Coming of Prophet Isa. While the Dajjal continued his rule, believers kept praying and waiting for help. One night, a bright star appeared in the sky over the desert. A voice called out from the heavens. It was a gentle, powerful voice. Allah's servant, Isa, Jesus, has come down from the skies. Come greet him with peace. As the faithful cried out, Allahu Akbar, a man appeared riding on a white horse. He wore two cloths, both shining pure white. His face was gentle and noble. He came down surrounded by angels whose wings sparkled in the moonlight. The people were filled with hope when they saw him. Prophet Isa, peace be upon him, walked among them. He turned to the Muslims in the crowd and asked, "Who will carry me to the city in time for the noon prayer?" A brave man from the believers named Suhail volunteered. Isa placed his hands on Suhail's shoulders, and together they ran swiftly to a nearby mosque. They arrived just as the noon prayer was about to end, and Isa led the prayer for the Muslims. When they gathered after the prayer, Isa addressed the people. He told them to stay firm on the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He said, Allah is one, and there is no God but Him. Worship Him alone, and do not worship anyone else. Then Isa lifted his hands to the sky and prayed. O Allah, bestow your blessings upon our Master Muhammad and upon those who follow his way, he prayed. He taught the people to remember Allah always and to honor the Prophet Muhammad. His gentle words brought peace and courage to everyone who heard them. News of the return of Prophet Isa spread quickly. Everywhere people shouted with joy and relief. The help from Allah had finally come. The believers felt strengthened in their faith. Even some of Dajjal's own followers began to wonder if they had been deceived. The day had come to end the Dajjal's false rule once and for all. Chapter 6. The final battle prophet Isa, peace be upon him, gathered the believers and marched toward the east, where the Dajjal had his stronghold. The followers of Isa had weapons, but they did not fight in anger. They followed Allah's orders and remained humble and patient. The Dajjal heard that Isa was coming, and he became very angry. He sent out armies of men to meet Isa's people. Great battles were fought in the desert. Dust filled the air, and the night was lit up with flashes of light from swords clashing. Many of the Dajjal's followers were defeated. The wind of Allah helped the believers in every fight. The Dajjal himself appeared riding on a creature with wings. He had two monsters by his side. His hair was wild, and his remaining eye glowed red. When he saw Isa, he sneered. "Now comes the Son of Mary," he cried, mocking Jesus with his words. But Isa remained calm. He stepped forward and raised his spear toward the Dajjal. The Dajjal made 3 attempts to fight. Each time Isa blocked his attacks without harming him. Finally, Isa saw an opening. With one quick move, he threw the spear of olive wood, striking the Dajjal between the shoulders. The Dajjal let out a short cry and fell to the sand, dead. At that moment, the sun broke through the darkness, and bright light filled the sky. The angels shouted, "Allahu Akbar." All the followers of Isa surrounded the Dajjal and realized the one-eyed liar was no more. Many of Dajjal's own followers understood that he had been defeated. Some bowed their heads and turned back to Allah. When the battle was over, Isa raised his arms and praised Allah. "There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger," he declared. The believers repeated these words joyfully. The nightmare of the Dajjal had ended, and the world was saved from his deception. Chapter 7. The New Dawn. With the Dajjal gone, peace finally began to return to the world. Prophet Isa, peace be upon him, stood with the believers and led them in a special prayer of thanks. He raised his hands and praised Allah for saving the people from the great deceiver. The earth, which had been dark and dry, started to bloom again. Rain fell, plants grew, and fruit trees blossomed. Everyone could work together to grow crops and share food. There were no more lies, no more wars. Isa gathered the people and told them to live by the teachings of the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He healed those who were sick and comforted those who had been scared. The whole world felt warm and kind. No one was hungry or thirsty. The children smiled and played, and even nature seemed happy. Isa destroyed any statues of false gods and built only places of worship where Allah is praised. For many years, Isa guided the people as a just leader. He always remembered to pray to Allah and reminded others to do the same. Muslims and people of all backgrounds lived together in harmony. At dawn and at sunset, they prayed in every town and city. Each day they thanked Allah for the new peaceful world they had been given. In the end, Prophet Isa also returned to Allah, as all people do. But by then, evil was almost gone from the world. The people lived in kindness and truth. The story of the one-eyed man and the great deceiver was passed down for generations. It reminded everyone that no matter how strong evil may seem, in the end, truth and faith will triumph under Allah's protection.